Workaholics, and welcome back to another reading vlog in which we are going to be tackling some series. This month has been all about series. The first week was starting series. The second week was binging a series. The third week is going to be continuing some series. We're going to work our way through some series that we have on the go. So I'm going to go through 3 very popular series, and they are all ones that I am at the minute lukewarm on. So hopefully these next installments will actually, do something. The first of which is the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I need to read the second half of The Way of Kings, and this is the second half of the first book in the Stormlight Archive. In the UK, they are split into 2 paperbacks, so I am working my way through. This one is a series in which we are following, so we had this order of knights that were known as the Knights Radiant, who were somewhat condemned to this eternal suffering, so they decided to abandon their post and leave one Knight Radiant there to the suffering, while the others just kind of left. A while later, we are following multiple perspectives, one of whom is Kaladin, who left his training to become a medic so that he could go help his brother in the army, and now he has ended up as a slave because of this general who wants to silence him. Then we also have the perspective of Dalinar, who is the commander of one of the armies in this war. The war started because we have the humans and the Parshendi, and they kind of came to a truce, except that the Parshendi ended up still sending someone to go murder the humans' king, and therefore the peace was broken and now they're at war. We're also following Shallan, who is the apprentice. She is a student of Dalinar's heretic niece Yasna, and while she is there, she is hoping to find information on the Knights Radiant so that she can then, I imagine, summon them eventually. Yeah, those are the 3 main perspectives. We also get like odd random other perspectives. For example, we got the perspective of the assassin that killed the king in the previous book, so we do get lots of other additional information from other perspectives as well. One of the things that I really love about this series that just doesn't happen enough anymore is that it is actually illustrated, which just more adult fantasy needs illustrations. Why is it you become an adult and suddenly you're not allowed pictures anymore? Love it. I am glad that Brandon Sanderson is really bringing back the picture book thing for adults. But yeah, I was fine with the first half of this book. It was interesting. It did slog a little bit. I wasn't emotionally invested, I think, is the problem, which is why it kind of started to slump. I am hoping that spending this much time with these characters will make me eventually fall in love with them, and I will be as invested as everyone else. The next one that I am going to be continuing is I am going to continue to work my way through the Discworld series with book 3, which is Equal Rights. Now, this one is the first. I've been told this is the first in the Witches series, but the synopsis on the back says that it's about the wizards, and I don't know if the Witches and the Wizards series are the same. I don't know. So we have a wizard who was dying, and when you're dying you need to pass your staff on to someone else so that they can acquire your magic, and he passes it on to the 8th son of the 8th son. However, he didn't check the gender of the person he was passing it on to, and now in the very misogynistic world of collegial magic, we potentially have a girl entering the ring. I'm very excited to see how I fare with this one, because I think it's going to be, as far as I'm aware, the wizard ones are satirizing academia, which one of my favorite things to satirize, so I'm very excited. Though I didn't love books 1 and 2 of Discworld, which were the Color of Magic and the Light Fantastic, I am hoping that we have an upward trajectory as the rest of the books go on in the series. And the last one that I have, the one that I have been really struggling my way through, is I'm going to be starting Wizard and Glass by Stephen King. This is the 4th book in the Dark Tower series, and it is following Roland, who is the gunslinger, and the gunslinger needs to pursue the man in black to the Dark Tower. He has a group of friends with him now. He has his own posse, yay, which hopefully will make Roland a little bit less insufferable. Not gonna lie, because Roland is intolerable at times. But we have Roland himself, and then we have wheelchair bound Susanna, we have ex-drug addict Eddie, and we have a boy named Jake and his pet boy. So I'm hesitant because I've had a very complicated time with this series, but it's entirely possible I will have a good time, so you never know. I ended up liking book 3 more than I thought I would. It's just that this is a lot of pages. There's a lot of pages of Stephen King. We'll see. We'll see how I go. I'm probably going to need a break after this one anyway, so this will probably be the last Stephen King I read until 2025. I think I'm going to start with Wizard and Glass, as I feel like it's going to be the biggest slug of them all. So we're going to start out this one today, and then hopefully I can go work my way through all 3 of these in a week. Bit ambitious, but you never know. Hey vlog, it's Tuesday and I'm only just checking in now and it's 6 p.m. I have not been doing as much reading today. It's been a busy one today, and then my kids came home and we've been going over Spanish verbs. So I've just been having to think of every single verb that I know that is relevant to my children. So that's been a lot on the brain. But I have made some progress across multiple books. So last night I did start The Wizard and Glass by Stephen King, and I got to part 2, so I am on page 112. The thing with these books is that I never really know what to talk about because almost like nothing happens. Like stuff happens, but the whole series, I feel, at least until this point, and I am at the halfway point once I finish this one, the whole series is literally just this kind of A to B, all this journey, and then everything else is just like impositions. So while things happen and bits happen in the story, they're just kind of scenes. They're just bits that happen in between this just long, arduous journey. So I never know how to talk about this series in a coherent manner. So yeah, that I don't know. I have no idea what else I could possibly say about this book at this point. I'm sure slightly more exciting things will happen and then I'll actually have something to say. But at the minute I have nothing to say and I've read 100 pages. I thought to lighten the load in between, because I do find Dark Tower books a bit of a drag, I thought, do you know what I'll do? I'll pick up Discworld. That was a rookie move. While I do like the writing style, one of the things that I did forget about Discworld is it doesn't have chapters. It just has these like little dot things in between, and it doesn't have chapters. Or if it does, they're like miles apart. And I don't like that because I'm the kind of person that really only likes putting down a book when I get to a chapter. So I really don't like that these don't have chapters. So this might just need to be where tonight I pause Wizard and Glass and I just binge my way through this one, so that then I don't hate the fact that I have to keep putting it down at really weird places. I mean, the tone is great, the humour's great. I am 37 pages in. I'm enjoying it. I just don't like that it's formatted the way it's formatted. I always think these books are going to be easier and lighter than they are because they're absurdism and then these short little things. I'm always like, they'll be a great little pick-me-up in between books. They're not a great little pick-me-up. They are books that feel like books, like full-length books. And I always forget that. So I need to kind of remember that. And I won't, because I'll look at it and be like, I'll breeze through it. It'll be fine. But books with no chapters take me the absolute longest because the amount of dread that sets in when I'm like, oh no, I can't stop. So at the moment, that's where I'm at. At this point, I might as well just also start with Kings and then just completely sabotage myself. So things are going. They're not going badly. They're not going well. They're just going at the moment. Hey vlog, it is Wednesday. It is Wednesday. I'm not insane, right? I have managed to read a really decent chunk of Wizard and Glass. I am now on page 338. And do you know what? It's actually really picked up in terms of plot. There's actually a plot. And we're getting Roland's backstory. We're getting to learn how he came to be the lone gunslinger. And we're seeing him as he discovers something about his family and then is sent away to help his kingdom with two of his friends. And while he's there, he falls in love with someone he shouldn't fall in love with. And we're going to, I imagine, see the repercussions of this because we don't ever see them again. So I'm assuming things are not going to go well for these characters. But I am very excited to continue. However, because it's King, I need my caveat. I am really hating the writing style. Now, I don't like the writing style at the best of times in this series, but the dialogue at the minute, will thee take care of me? Has thee thought of that? What's with all the these? All the these and the ye's and the thou. There's no thous. There's these but no thous, and there's ye's and yous and yours. I cannot stand the way he's using the dialogue because it's, as someone who is a history nerd, I have literally read, for fun, medieval texts in medieval English, like in Middle English. So hearing it bastardized this way is just exhausting. So I'm not a fan of it. Like, it's the wannabe Shakespeareanness. So the dialogue is insufferable. It's really long-winded as well. The way the conversations happen are really long-winded. The way that the plot's unfolding is really long-winded. So the plot is better. Stuff is happening. I'm a lot more engaged. But I am also really not having a good time with the writing style. So whenever things get good, things get bad. I did, however, also last night finish Discworld. Well, finished Equal Rights. I definitely haven't finished all of Discworld. Finished Equal Rights. This one, it satirizes academia, like I said it would, in a really fascinating way, in a really engaging way. There were things that I think are conversations that needed to be had during this time that now have potentially evolved. So it's not that the conversations are no longer needed. I just think that this is potentially quite a basic iteration of this conversation. But because it's done as satire, that's not an annoyance. It's not something that's a problem. I am enjoying reading these books, but I do find the fact that there's no chapters really long, and there are parts of it that I just don't engage with. The writing style isn't 100% my thing, so there are elements that I'm just like, but I enjoy them enough that I'm happy to keep continuing them, and I'm happy to have that conversation with the universe that Terry Pratchett is putting out there. So I'm glad that I am working my way through them. They don't take me very long to read at all because the font is absolutely huge. You can read it from space, and then the books are always under 300 pages. This one is 282. So again, it really doesn't take me very long to get through them. So I'm having a good time, but maybe they're not like going to be new favorites anytime soon. So I am now on part 3 of Wizard and Glass. So I'm hoping to read part 3 today, part 4 tomorrow, and part 4 is very short. So hopefully I can read part 4 in the morning tomorrow, and then I can actually get started with The Way of Kings part 2. And then I will have actually worked my way through all of the books in a timely manner and not finish on a Monday like I keep doing. Hey vlog, it is Thursday, so I thought I would check in. I did in fact read the remnants of the Wizard and Glass this morning, which means that I have now read parts 3 and 4 and finished the book. This is a weird one because again, I really did like certain elements of the plot throughout this one a lot more than I have with the previous ones, because I felt the other ones didn't really almost have a plot. It was just stuff happening, and having 3 books worth of setup book is, well, a lot. So this one actually having what is a much more clear and linear plot was good. And then it being this really quintessential fantasy western, like it was definitely a combination of fantasy, because you have this high fantasy world with the western vibes. So I thought that was really good. Like I said before, the writing style really did not work for me when we are talking about especially the dialogue, but also just sometimes how long-winded it could get. In part 3 as well, another issue that I really did have was the depiction of women. There are several women in here. Women essentially in this book, as usual with King, are thrown under the bus. We have, I'm going to go with 3 prominent women, but there are 4 that annoyed me. So we have our primary love interest, who is very much damsel in distress. And she is also someone who, without spoilers, is too typically forgiving and good. She is that typical woman that is worth saving, that woman that you are supposed to adore. And it was ew, like ew. Then we have the woman who is your typical, I'm going to use the word typical a lot, by the way, power grabbing woman, the she-wolf depiction, that woman who is vying for power at any cost and will do it at the expense of everyone else and doesn't care who she has to kill along the way. And it's done in this really like despicable way, when that's what men have always done and been praised for. So I resent those kinds of characters anyway, unless it's to spin it on its head. I think Cersei is a good example of that, where she is quintessentially a she-wolf, but repeatedly you are shown why she does what she does. And even though you hate her, like you don't have to redeem her, but it's, you know, well, men have always done this, and she's pitted against other men that are equally despicable. So I appreciate that. Not in this. It is just very much like it's the wrong power dynamic almost, or something. We have a couple of women who are the mob mentality women. They are the type of women that are used to keep other women in line. And I think if we had had a real contrast there, if we'd had some women that have been made to push back against conventions, then that they wouldn't have bothered me. But those are the only 4 women we have. We have 2 that are patriarchy enforcers. We have 1 that is a she-wolf, and we have a damsel in distress. So the women in part 3, where they should have been evolved more, in any case de-evolved. So I was not happy with that. So for the most part, it's a decent enough story. I had decent enough time, not without its problems and with a really long-winded writing style. This book felt way too long. So I've given it 3 stars, which is quite typical for what I have been giving the Dark Tower series. So while I shall continue, we still do not have a yay, I'm so glad I'm reading this series installment yet. Which moves us along to our next read, and that is going to be The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. So today's hope is to get a decent ways in. I would like to be reading about 120 to 150 pages a day so that I can have this done by the end of the weekend. So the idea is I'm going to start this one today and then hopefully have it done by Sunday. So once I'm done with the first part, because this is the second book of this book, this is the second half because it's split in 2. I have parts 3, 4, and 5 left. Parts 3, 4, and 5, yes. So hopefully I will have this done soon. So when I've got to the end of each part, I will be able to check in with you. Hey Bug, it's Saturday. I didn't update you in the end yesterday. I basically came down to the townhouse and then we settled in, and then this morning I've been moving furniture around and it's all been rather busy. so I haven't actually checked in a while. I did do some reading on Thursday night, like I said I would, but I haven't actually read anything since. So I have read one of the parts, so part 3 of Way of Kings part 2, which means that I am now on page 207. A lot of my thoughts remain the same as they were in the first half of this book, where I'm interested. I think that this is arguably the best writing style I have seen on Sanderson, and it is more compelling in the sense of intrigue, in the sense of you can see how much more there is still to develop in this world. I do think that I am connecting less with the characters than I would like for a story this dense. I don't know exactly what it is that works so well for other people with these characters that I'm not seeing. I don't know, because the way people talk about this, because this series is so complex, people tend to be rather vague when they talk about it. But the problem with being really vague when you talk about the series is that then I don't really know the specifics of what people like about it. I know a lot of people in Mistborn, for example, they love the world building and they love the magic system. And then there are a few characters that they attach themselves to. I didn't get attached to the characters. I thought the world building was fine, and I'm not a fan of hard magic systems. So I can pinpoint, yes, I completely understand why you love these things, but they just don't work for me. With Stormlight, I don't really know what isn't working for me that works so well for everyone else. I am curious. I am interested. I am potentially going to continue, but this is a series that I will pick up the next installment, and if I like it, I'll pick up the next one. It's not one where I feel confident enough that I'll just go pick up all the Stormlight archive because I know I will love it and read it all. I don't know what is not grabbing me the same way as it grabs everyone else. The characters are interesting enough, they have an interesting story. I can see the potential of where their story could go. The world building is intriguing enough. The plot, the individual plots, again, I find very interesting. I can't quite see yet the bigger picture of how all of this is going to come together. I know that we have this thing with the Knights Radiant. I know that obviously we have this ongoing war, but I don't really see how these individual perspectives were the ones that were handpicked in a way. Like, what is their pivotal role specifically that will tie everything together? So I'm curious and I am interested, but I'm not enamored. I'm not in love with it. Now, I know that Sanderson is known for his Sanderlanches, so it is entirely possible that the last of the parts, so I've got 3 parts in this book. I'm about to start part 4, and then we have part 5. I assume that part 5 is where all hell breaks loose and where I will potentially know if this is going to be a series for me or not. I don't know. But at the moment, the interest is there, but that's the full extent. I have just nipped home really quickly because we are going to be staying down in the townhouse for a lot longer than anticipated. We're going to be staying down for at least a week because my mum has sprained her ankle. So to get up to her house, you have to go upstairs. To get here, you have to drive. So it's just so much more convenient if we're down in town where it's flat and you don't need to drive anywhere. So we're going to be staying down there because my parents also have to put their car into the garage for it to get a part replaced. So they have no car, and my mum only has one functioning leg. So we're going to be staying down there so that we can help out. So we're all staying down together in the townhouse. So while I'm up here, I thought I would come in and wrap up the books. I did end up finishing part 4 of The Way of Kings, and then this morning I have managed to finish the part 5, which is actually really small. I think I'd underestimated how small part 5 was. It's that big, and bear in mind that you have to have the necessary Arcanum that you get of Sanderson's. So this is part 5. So I've done so I need to read part 3 on the Thursday, and then part 4 on the Friday and Saturday, and part 5 on the Sunday, because I knew that part 4 was the longest part, but I had severely underestimated how small part 5 was. So I actually managed to read that this morning, so I can actually wrap these up. Starting off with The Way of Kings, I do think that part 4 did have some really interesting things going on in it, especially when it comes to Kaladin and Dalinar and the way that their perspectives go. I do like reading the odd intermittent perspective. I do like that they're thrown in instead of us only following our 3/4 main perspectives. So we do get Seth at the end of every part, and he's a fascinating one. I really actually like reading Seth's perspective. I would happily have a whole book just on his perspective. I appreciate that probably the sparse nature of the chapters of his is what makes him so interesting, but I would happily read so much more Seth. The 3 main perspectives I like. I do like, as I said, having the additional ones, like having Adolin in reference to Dalinar, I think was really fascinating. I don't understand the hatred for Shallan. I really don't, because I've read the whole book and I still don't hate her. I think she's actually quite a fascinating character, and she's not any worse off to me. Like, I don't like her any less than Dalinar and Kaladin. She's a different pacing, but she's kind of more along the, it almost feels like dark academia to an extent. It's like this uncovering this piece of information and this type of magic that she's not supposed to be, and all with this like espionage, bad intentions, but love of learning combo that is so dark academia. Anyone else get that vibe? Like, not the atmosphere is completely off, it's epic fantasy, but like the undertone, I don't know, there's something about it that I quite like. So I guess if you're reading Sanderson for epic fantasy, I can understand in a way why you wouldn't like Shallan's character, but I enjoy reading her. Dalinar is a fascinating character because he's one that I was unsure of to begin with. I didn't know what Sanderson would be able to do with this character, but I think he's going in a very fascinating avenue, and I'm very excited to see where he's going. Kaladin has the most expected trajectory. That sounds weird, but the most linear trajectory at the moment. Like, you once you know from the back what happens to him at the beginning, after that it's like, yeah, everything about your personality says it's going to be this, but it's not without its like bumps in the road, which I really like, because it's really easy to have a character like Kaladin just keep being able to do everything they want to, along the lines of like Vin and Kelsier, which was a big downside to Mistborn for me. And I don't know, I like Kaladin, and I'm definitely connecting with the story of these characters more. I don't feel like I'm emotionally invested in anyone. I'm interested by everyone. So I'm more than happy to continue, and I'm assuming that over the course of these really long books, at some point I'm going to begin to care about someone. At the end of the day, I didn't realize how much I cared about the characters from the Toad Child series until I was in the second book, and I was like, don't you hurt my babies. So it may well be something similar with this one. I don't know. So far, I'm interested in the plot. It's definitely a step up for Mistborn for me, but I don't think that Sanderson is ever going to be a favorite author, because the writing style in here is rather different than it is in Mistborn, in my opinion. And I'm still not like, oh my god, now I get it. I get why everyone loves this man. Like, he's a decent time. I enjoy the books well enough, and I'm happy to join in the conversation, and I'm happy to see what everyone is loving, and I am enjoying my time with it. I just don't think that the way he phrases things is what suits my brain. But there you have it. So those are my thoughts on this one, which means that this week I have managed to read a bookmark. Read 3 books, which is Equal Rights by Terry Pratchett, which I ended up giving like a solid 3 stars. I enjoyed it well enough. I am always happy to just kind of continue Discworld, but I do need gaps in between. We have a 3-star Wizard and Glass that had some real 4-star moments in there, and some real 2-star writing going on in there as well. So interesting story in general. I think it's probably one of the better installments. I just hate how Stephen King writes women with a passion. So we'll see how I feel by the time I get to the end of the series. And then we have The Way of Kings, which I have given the second one a really high 3-star. Like I said, it took the first part was still like, okay, come on, some point. I would say the second half of part 4 is definitely a 4-star read, and I can definitely understand why people love this series. So I am excited, and I suspect that as the series goes on, I will rate them higher. But this one still didn't quite hit 4-star read material for me, but wasn't in any way unenjoyable. So it's a weird one because it's a 3-star week, but they've all got 3 stars, and none of them are like, oh, that was awful. So it's like this one, it just had a bit of a, I don't really care too much for the first half of the second half of this book. It took too long for me to actually give a shit, I guess is the thing, but it was enjoyable and the characters are interesting and I am happy to continue. And then we have, like I said, one that had some really solid 4-star vibes when it comes to parts of the plot and certain like elements, but the writing style was absolutely 2-star read at best, and the women were like 1-star at times. And then this one, where it's one that I really like the conversations and the discussions that are being had, those are definitely 4 stars. And the plot is more like a really solid 3-star, and then there are parts of the writing style that just aren't quite to my personal taste, that are more like a 2-star. So they're all like 3 stars, but because they have 4-star and 2-star elements which was a really, really weird time. Apart from this one doesn't have any 2-star elements. It's just that there's too much of this book that is 3 stars for me to give it 4 stars, just because the latter, like, tiny chunk was 4 stars. Good time, not a great time, but a good time. So now next week I'm going to be moving on to a series that I am going to be finishing. You're going to see me finish up 3 series. One's a bit of a cheat, but shh, we don't talk about it. And yeah, I am really excited to get into that vlog. So let me know your thoughts on any of these books and your thoughts on my opinions on any of these books. And I am hoping that you will stick around. So I will catch you in another one soon. Bye.